right, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We know people are still finishing up getting food, or if people are gonna go back and get seconds, by all means, please do that. This is meant to be a fun occasion. Hopefully there'll be great laughter, and we know there are kids in the room, so there might be crying at times, and that is totally okay. This is a fantastic event that we want to have a lot of fun at. So please go up and get seconds. What great food we have. But there'll be more of that in a little bit. I wanted to welcome everyone to the 31st annual award ceremony here at Fort Collins Police Services. For 31 years, we've been doing this. That is just such a testament to this organization, recognizing great work going back that far. So, I am Jeff Swoboda, the police chief, and it's my honor to ask that you all please rise for the presentation of colors, and please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem. It will be sung by Sarah Click, and there will also be signing by Officer Bailey Stein. And the honor guard will take it from here.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, arms, ready, face, forward, march.
Please be seated. Can we do one more round of applause for our honor guard and Officer Click and Klein? Amazing job. Okay, I would like to recognize my staff who are going to be presenting awards with me tonight, and they are on stage. First, Deputy Chief Greg Yeager. There'll be Assistant Chief Christy Valesky, Director Justin Aller, Acting Assistant Chief Kelly Weaver, and Acting Assistant Chief Jeremy Yantz. And helping me present the awards tonight will be Lieutenant Frank Barrett, who will be running up on stage back and forth, presenting the awards and honors. You know, I'd also like to recognize a few of our special guests here tonight, and I know you hear this often, and truly everyone in this in this room is special. And whether you're a family member, you're an officer getting an award, you're one of our newer officers, you're a member of the press, whatever the case is, we really do appreciate everyone being here. And some of the people we really want to say thank you for with our city council and our city manager, who we'll hear from in a minute. But I just want to say thank you for the support that we get from our council. And some are here tonight. Councilperson Susan Gutowski is here. Councilperson Shirley Peel. Again, City Manager DiMartino we'll hear from in a minute. Tyler Marr, our Deputy City Manager, Assistant City Manager Rupa Venkatesh, Human Resource Director Teresa Roach. I don't think she's missed one of these ever. So thank you for being here, Teresa. And I know some I've already raised as well. I've never missed one either. So the District Attorney Gordon McLaughlin is here. David Moore from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for being here, David. And we'll see Tim Duran a little bit later, but our Loveland Police Chief, recent member of Fort Collins Police Services as well. So could we give all of them a round of applause? And thank you for being here tonight. You know, as I mentioned, this is our 31st year doing these awards. And why do we do these awards? You know, people don't get into this line of work because they're looking for the accolades or looking for awards that they can pin on their chest. They do this in service to other people. But I still think it's so important to recognize that this work that you're going to hear from tonight, not just about police officers, but our community members who step forward in someone else's time of need, really just, especially in today's day and age, we just need to say thank you and just say what you did mattered and made a difference and we appreciate it as a community. Because as a community, we're all in this together. And I'm reminded whenever I talk about the community and working with a police department, Robert Peel, many of you have probably heard of, those of you at least in the criminal justice realm. Robert Peel is kind of the father of modern day policing. And he had many principles of which we founded law enforcement on, but the one that always resonated with me is that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police are just those people who are paid to give full-time attention to those duties that are incumbent upon everyone. And so if you think about that for a minute, that's why we're all here. It's what the police do shouldn't be much more than what a community member does. Now, we'll do the heavy lifting, obviously, with weapons and powers of arrest, but we need the entire community to step up when someone is in need, and that stepping up might just be making a phone call. But so I think it's so important when we're here, we're recognizing police officers, dispatchers, records people, the gamut of people inside Fort Collins Police Services. We wouldn't be who we are, and we wouldn't be able to perform the services we have without a supportive community. And so I really want to say thank you to those members who are here from the community who stopped by just to say thank you and meet a few people, or you're a neighbor of a police officer, or some of you who are getting awards tonight, because when somebody needed some help, you were there, and not only were you there, you did something that made a difference. And that is something we should never, ever take for granted, that people will step up all the time, because we know that they won't. So really want to say thank you to those who do step up. And it's now my honor to introduce Kelly DiMartino, the city manager of Fort Collins Police Services. Of not Fort Collins, the city. And then I work for the police department. Welcome.
All right, I want to know what it looks like to be the city manager of police services. This is going to be fun. Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to be here to welcome you and on behalf of our city organization to say thank you. As Chief said, so much of tonight is really about just taking a moment to pause for honoring and celebrating the amazing work that occurs. We have a mission as a city organization for exceptional service for an exceptional community. And what I love about tonight is that it really showcases both of those things. We are going to hear some remarkable stories of heroism of the men and women who devote their lives to service to our community. In all different phases of their career. It was fun to meet our new cadets in the back today and see, again, so many familiar faces. We're also going to honor and celebrate community members who just step up to do the right thing in time of need, and that's pretty amazing as well. I had the opportunity this week, many of you may have heard that we had a tragic fatality in the city organization. And so I saw at a different level the professionalism and the compassion of our police organization. And so I want to say thank you for that. And for those of you who are in the community, just know how very, very well served we are by Fort Collins Police Services. When the chief said earlier there might be tears, you all thought it was the children, it might be your city manager. maybe a few of you tonight, because again, we're going to see some here and just hear more about some really wonderful stories. So with that, I am going to turn it right back over to get the program started. Again, gratitude to all of you who are here. Thank you for the ongoing support of our agency and of the community. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and it is an honor to serve with you, someone who leads with her heart and really looks at what's the best thing and most important thing that we need to be doing as a city, and not always just what does the rule say, but what's the right thing to do. And so I really appreciate the way you lead, Kelly. I'd also now like to recognize our awards committee. They're the ones who make tonight possible. I stopped by here just to see the room and how they were doing, I don't know, 1 o'clock or so, and there was a group of just putting this all together. We don't hire this out, so putting the tables together, putting all of the tablecloths on there and the centerpieces. They just do all this, the amazing food that they got done. They didn't cook the food, but they organized to make sure that the food came, and they just do a great job. So if you would stand when I read your name, and everybody please stay standing until the end so we could recognize you all at once. Committee chairperson is Lieutenant Frank Barrett. We have Ted Fall with our evidence supervisor, Officer Brian Grosshans, Officer Aaron Feit, Sergeant Andy Ferraro, Corporal Tessa Jacobson, Administrative Assistant Lori McGee, Records Representative Randine Nelson, Officer Dominic Rios, and Administrative Assistant Kelly Valdez. Would we all please recognize them for a great event? Thank you. I just really quick also want to say thanks to Kendall Miner and Travis Storen from the city. Our executive leadership team throughout the city is just phenomenal, and the way we all support each other and showing up here tonight means a lot. So thank you, gentlemen, for both being here tonight. All right, this is also our 7th year holding this ceremony here at Timberline Church. And I want to also say thank you to them and their staff for giving us this space so we could have this amazing ceremony tonight. Thank you to Timberline Church. Appreciate you very much. All right, now we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the milestones, people that hit some career milestones. And we identify those people that have been serving with Fort Collins Police Services for 20 years or more. And we're going to start with those who have been serving for 20 years. If you're here, would you mind please standing for your year mark? So these are the 20-year anniversaries. Sergeant Mike Averick, Sergeant Kyle Benza, Officer Mike Crosland, Officer David Kays, Officer Tammy Tracy. Well, congratulations for 20 years of service. Thank you. And 25 years. Please stand if you're here. There are just 3. Sergeant Mike Langley, Sergeant Paul Wood, and Records Manager Lisa Robles. Thank you guys for 25 years. 30 years. We have 2. Corporal Scott Gammon and Administrative Assistant Lori McGee. 30 years with Fort Collins. Thank you. And hitting his 35th year is Officer Rick Mainwall. Congratulations, Rick. And finally, 40 years of service with Fort Collins Police Services, Records Representative Wanda Harding. Wanda, congratulations, 40 years. All right, there is another group that we'd like to recognize that with whom we wouldn't be here today. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize a group that does amazing work for us day in and day out and allows us to be able to have an award ceremony like today's. These are our field training officers. These are when people graduate the academy, they go out and they actually learn the job in the field with experienced members of Fort Collins Police Services. And our FTOs are the best of the best, and they're the ones that I like to say are the secret sauce of any well-run police organization. It's the people who originally trained. So the academy, absolutely, but actually going out and see how we treat the citizens, the residents, the business owners, the students, that's where the rubber meets the road. And I am just so proud of our FTOs. You do amazing work. This job is hard enough, but to say, sure, give me a brand new person, put them in my car with me all day, and I'll take them out. Not only will I protect myself and what's happening, whatever call I'm going on, but I'll also be looking out for someone else as well. It's just such a tall order. But again, we would not be the organization we are without them. And so I want to recognize those who have trained 5 or more of our new officers. So I'll have, again, if you're here, if you would please stand. There's probably about 10 of you who have done 5 of them. So Officer Ryan Barish, Brandon Barnes, Matt Bruff, Dan Callahan, Rebecca Finkel, Jake Schneider, Phil Selgren, Matt Tybee, Josh Trutler, RJ Tuttle, Brian Werder, and Dustin Weir. Thank you all for your 5 or more. There's a few that have trained more than 10, and those are Matt Chernak, who did 15, Paul Harding did 11, Mike McTighe trained 15 new officers, and Nick Rogers trained 11. Congratulations and thank you, each of you. And one person who has trained 25 or more, and so in this case it was 26. And he was also our Officer of the Year last year, Andy Haase. Congratulations, Andy. 26 people that he's trained in his career. What a difference. You know, we all, when you leave your career, you want to know, did I have an impact? And hopefully everyone in whatever career you're in can know that you've made an impact. But the one thing I know for certain is FTOs, talk to any police officer, any community service officer, and ask them to name their field training officers. I promise you they will be able to remember each one of them. I remember mine from 31 years ago, all 7 of them. It took 7 people to train me, but I remember them all. 6 were great. So now we're going to be moving on to our the awards portion, and these are the Citizens Awards. And so when I call your name, if you would please, or your organization that you're representing, please come on over and actually come on up. We have an X on the up here on the carpet that we'd like you to stand. We're going to get a great photo, but I'm going to read about why you're getting an award today as you're coming up. So will the staff of 3 Hopeful Hearts please come to the stage? And as they're coming up, we'll applaud for them in 1 second. In 2012, our agency became aware of an amazing resource in our community called 3 Hopeful Hearts. They provide support for those impacted by the death of an infant or a child. Unfortunately, law enforcement employees have seen too many of these cases over the years. Knowing there is a resource available to help parents navigate through this difficult time in their lives has at least given the first responders and victim advocates some solace. In a recent case we handled, the lives of 2 innocent children were taken. This has impacted our agency significantly, as well as our entire community. When we asked 3 Hopeful Hearts to start working with the family of these children, we knew they were in capable and compassionate hands. Members of 3 Hopeful Hearts worked with the parents and families not only through the initial grief process, but through the other upcoming stages as well, which included funerals, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries of deaths. These wounds never completely heal. But 3 Hopeful Hearts helps those experiencing loss learn to navigate these events as best they can and develop a new normal. For their compassion and never-ending support of family, friends, and our community, I'm pleased to present 3 Hopeful Hearts with a meritorious service commendation citation. Congratulations. What an amazing organization. And the first one's always the toughest, where, I did tell them on the X is over there, but when there are multiple people, we'll slide over just a little bit. All right. The next one is a distinguished service commendation. Is Deborah Kumbarek here today? Was she able to come? Okay. I'll still read what Deborah did. In August, officers responded to a call for service involving several suspects who had been using stolen credit cards and traveling in a stolen vehicle in the Fort Collins area. As officers narrowed in on the suspects, one of them fled the store, and they were attempted to steal a vehicle as a getaway. Deborah was currently occupying the vehicle, along with an elderly person that Deborah had volunteered to take shopping that day. As the suspect attempted to gain access to the vehicle, Deborah acted quickly and pushed the start button on the vehicle to turn it off and disable it. Shortly after, the suspect was apprehended by the police when confronted with an unexpected threat. Deborah acted quickly to prevent her vehicle from being stolen and taken with another elderly person still in the vehicle, who had no way of protecting herself from the suspect, and Deborah's quick thinking and her ability to think rationally during a very traumatic case that was unfolding quickly is a reason we have offered to a distinguished service commendation to Deborah. So even though she's not here, could we please give Deborah a round of applause? Thank you. Okay, next we have Jacqueline Clark, Sean Cummings, Michael Schluter are going to be given the Distinguished Service Commendation. Are any of them here tonight? Okay. On July, perfect. Come on up. On July 11, 2022, Jacqueline Clark was walking in front of the Elizabeth Hotel in Old Town when she observed a male running towards her with a purse under his arm. There was another male, Sean Cummings, running behind him, yelling for the male to stop, that he had just stolen a purse. Sean was coming out of Coopersmith and observed the suspect snatch the purse from a patron who was sitting on the patio area of having a dinner. Jacqueline was able to grab the suspect and his backpack to prevent him from escaping. She was joined by some other citizens who came up to help, and the suspect became very agitated. At this time, Michael Schluter was riding his bike in the area and saw the situation and stopped to subdue the suspect. The suspect made multiple attempts to escape, and Michael and Sean were able to take the suspect back to the ground each time. A call came into our agency regarding the situation, stating that the male may have had a gun. Officer Mark Cutter was one of the several officers dispatched to the call, and upon his arrival, observed the citizens struggling with the suspect. The officers were able to help gain control of the suspect and arrest him. Medical staff was called to check on the suspect. While we do not recommend citizens placing themselves in danger like this, but if it wasn't for their quick action, we would not have been able to give the victim back all of their property and the things inside, which was a value of $2,000 that the victim would have been out. And it's for these reasons I am providing Michael tonight with the Distinguished Service Commendation. Congratulations, Michael. Is Jacob Vint here tonight? Jacob? Okay, last month Jacob was attending his math class at Lincoln Middle School. His friend and fellow classmate was holding an ice cube in his mouth that was too large for him to chew. His friend accidentally swallowed the ice cube and it became lodged in his throat, leaving him unable to breathe. Jacob saw that his friend was panicked and was clutching his mouth and throat. Jacob recognized that he was choking and immediately and calmly began to administer the Heimlich maneuver. He dislodged the ice cube and allowed his friend to breathe again. Jacob's quick and brave actions kept his friend from experiencing further medical complications and likely saved his life. For his actions, I'm pleased to present Jacob with the Distinguished Service Commendation. Congratulations. We know that Tom Weston is not able to be here, but in June, Thomas was walking on the east side of town and observed a very violent disturbance between a male and a female. Thomas began walking toward the fight and observed the male partly standing over the female, who was laying on the ground and screaming. The male was holding a knife in his hand and a large metal pole in his other hand. Thomas stated it looked as if the male was going to stab the female. Thomas, who's a concealed carry permit, drew his weapon and began giving commands to the male to get away from the female. The male immediately stopped what he was doing and left in his vehicle. He was later arrested on charges of third-degree assault and domestic violence. Thomas' nominator, Officer Ryan Barish, stated that he believes that if Thomas had not interjected the way he had, the female would likely have been seriously injured or killed. And for that reason, we will be giving Thomas a Distinguished Service Commendation. Andrew Stokes, are you here tonight? I believe so. Come on up, Andrew. On September 4th, Andrew Stokes was working at a community pool and assigned to the lifeguard tower. This day fell over the holiday weekend, so the pool was extremely crowded and loud. A 3-year-old girl left the kiddie pool and walked towards the adult pool. As she did, she slipped into the deep end. Her father found her floating face down, blue and unresponsive. The father picked her up and called for help. Andrew heard the cries and jumped into action. He went to the father, secured the young girl out of the pool, and began giving CPR. Luckily, she regained consciousness and became responsive. EMTs arrived soon after and continued medical care. If not for Andrew's immediate actions, the outcome of this little girl could have been much different. For his heroic actions, I'm pleased to present Andrew with the Distinguished Service Commendation. We're in good hands with young adults like that, the last couple that we've been reading off. Speaking of young adults, the next one is for Tim Duran. Tim, come on up. Tim Duran came to work for us in January of 2019 and worked as the Assistant Chief or the Criminal Investigations Division from December 2020 to December 2022, prior to his departure to become the Chief of Police in Loveland. During his time at Fort Collins Police Services, Tim led his assigned divisions with commitment to the agency's mission and regularly took the time to meet personally with his employees under his command. He recognized the workload of his staff and met regularly to discuss their satisfaction and ideas to assist in the productivity. It was not uncommon for Tim's staff to receive and it's important to note this nomination came from his staff. It is not uncommon for Tim's staff to receive an email or text message of support and praise their work. This personal connection often served as motivation and inspiration to continue to put in the hard work and long hours that are required, especially in the Criminal Investigations Division. Tim personally championed several evidence-related policy changes and work-life suggestions that helped property and evidence units refocus their priorities, greatly increasing morale and job satisfaction. Tim had an open-door policy at Fort Collins Police Services that allowed for a collaborative, approachable, and productive work environment. He is able to balance the role of supervisor while also serving as a mentor, colleague, and friend, and treats everyone equal with respect as sworn and professional staff alike. Tim's leadership, sincerity, humor, and character have been greatly appreciated, and we're absolutely going to miss Tim, but we're so happy for what he is doing and will do for years to come at Loveland. So I am super pleased to announce that I am giving Tim Duran the Commitment to Excellence Award. Congratulations, Tim. Nobody else has to do this, but we're going to ask Tim just to say a few words, because I know we're so happy to have Tim back here real quick.
Well, I'd like to thank my team for this award nomination, but more importantly, there are so many instances when Chief Swoboda recognizes the community, the color guard, the singers, everyone, but we rarely recognize him. So I'd like a round of applause for Chief Swoboda.
Now it looks like I asked him to step up to speak to do it. Now that just blew it. But thank you, Tim. All right. The next award is to Assistant Chief Christy Valesky and Co-Responder Supervisor Stephanie Boko for the Police Chief's Commendation. In 2018, Co-Responder Supervisor Stephanie, who works at our mental health response team, heard a smartphone application called Vitals. The application helps bridge the information gap between first responders and vulnerable people in the times of crisis. When a person wearing a Vitals Bluetooth device comes within 80 feet of a first responder, the responder will be notified through their smartphone about the person's needs and how to best interact with them. Stephanie began researching the app and realized it would be a great tool for law enforcement in responding to people with mental health disorders and/or cognitive delays. In 2020, Assistant Chief Christy Valesky learned of the Vitals app and saw this benefit as well. Christy and Stephanie worked together to present the idea and purpose behind the app and started conversations with the company which produced the applications. Vitals was officially launched in Fort Collins in April 2022, making us the first city in Colorado to use this software. The Vitals app is a forward-thinking tool that has greatly benefited our community and officers and further our agency's missions. For their efforts, I'm pleased to present Assistant Chief Christy Valesky and co-responder Stephanie Boko with Police Chief's commendations. Congratulations. Next, I'd ask Lieutenant Frank Barrett, Crime Analyst Max Eggenberger, and Cynthia Flores Chambers to come forward for the Commitment to Excellence. In June 2021, Cynthia Flores Chambers was hired as our newest crime analyst. She had less than 2 weeks of instruction from her peer analyst before the analyst left the agency. Cynthia inherited a new dispatch and police reporting system which had no reliable search or reporting mechanisms. She learned the systems and began working to untangle past reporting, finding numerous errors. She was able to complete a national reporting document, provide us with well-researched data for the city's annexation proposals, and finish many spots, report to supervisors around the agency. Shortly thereafter, Max was hired. Max came to us with military analyst experience, but no law enforcement experience. He had very little time to train with Cynthia before she was away on maternity leave. However, Max learned quickly and dove into the system and reports. He completed many products for agency supervisors, including data we've needed for several city council inquiries. Max consistently seeks to expand his training and responsibility. Co-locating these two analysts into one unit is new, and Lieutenant Frank Barrett began supervising the unit as was established, and during these changes, he provided a stabilizing force for Cynthia and Max. He champions their work and secures expanded training and exposures to them. These two analysts have only been working together for a few months, but they have done well and populated our data visualization program. In collaboration with Lieutenant Barrett's leadership, they've begun generating weekly reports for agency personnel. Lieutenant Barrett, Cynthia, and Max are always friendly and professional. They work well together, appropriately engage with colleagues, and support the agency with their work products. And as I'm reading this, I realize this was for my Deputy Chief to read. So I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Greg Yeager to please come forward and present Frank, Max, and Cynthia with the Commitment to Excellence Awards.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I have the chief do my speaking points. Now that I'm warmed up, I'll do the last one. So I really do appreciate this team. As the chief said in the citation, this is a new team, new members, and a new concept to put them together. And they're just doing a phenomenal job. And I appreciate Frank's leadership and their diligent work. So thanks to that team. As I read this next award, I'm going to ask Administrative Assistant Kelly Valdez to join me. This will be for a commitment to excellence. And this citation, I don't need to read this, actually. Let me just tell you about Kelly. Kelly's been with us for a number of years, and she's moved around the agency by starting in records, and then she came up to be the administrative assistant in our admin division. And in that time, her responsibilities have just increased, and she's embraced these wholeheartedly. Kelly is a diligent worker on our CALIA accreditation process. She helps Lieutenant Barrett and others with that program. She has constantly sought ways that she could help other people around the organization. So if you came into our building, you'd find Kelly in almost every division helping somebody out. She works very well with our personnel and training unit. She's been working in CID to help them. She's just constantly out there looking for ways to improve the work product for other people and relieve the burden. And so we're just very appreciative of Kelly's work and her dedication to our organization. And for that, it's my privilege to give Kelly our commitment to excellence. now that I've exhausted my broad speaking engagement, I'm going to ask our next one is not labeled. It's my friend Christy Valesky. Christy's our Assistant Chief over Patrol.
Thank you. We can only let Greg talk so much, and that was a lot. So will Colorado State University Police Department Officer Haley Morris please join me on the stage? During the month of November, our early week night shift officers responded to multiple incidents involving Spanish-speaking citizens. CSU Police Department Officer Haley Morris responded to approximately 5 calls to assist us with Spanish translation. On one of those calls, she responded to the scene twice to assist, followed up with the victim twice on her own accord, and then followed up a 3rd time at the request of an officer. In another situation, Officer Morris responded to a vehicle theft in which a majority of the suspects were Spanish-speaking. Thanks to Officer Morris, all parties were apprehended on felony charges, and the vehicle was returned to the owner. Officer Morris has been willing to assist officers when and where needed and never complains. Her bilingual capabilities have greatly helped us provide quality service to our citizens, as well as ensuring quality investigations are being conducted with potential suspects. It's incredibly beneficial to have great partners in our community, and this is another example of those from Officer Morris. For her assistance to our agency, I am pleased to present Officer Haley Morris with the Commitment to Excellence Award. All right. Will Sergeant Annie Hill please join me on stage? The Recognize a Responder program works with today's youth on who and what constitutes a safe stranger if there is ever an emergency. The program focuses on education specifically within the neurodiverse community. When the program began a few years ago, Sergeant Annie Hill, at the time an officer, was a foundational part of it. When the program leader, Ellie, left earlier this year, Sergeant Hill took over coordination of the program. Even after she was promoted to sergeant and began working the night shift, Sergeant Hill continued planning events, worked with local service providers to organize engagement opportunities, and contacted our partners at PFA, UC Health, and UC Health Life Flight. Annie, stand on the, thank you. Sergeant Hill also attended these events outside of her night shift to engage with the attendees. The Recognize a Responder program has built bridges with our intellectual and developmental disability and neurodivergent community and service providers. Sergeant Hill's passion for connecting with and serving people is evident in her continued commitment to the program, despite changes in her position and work hours. For her actions to create lasting community relationships, I am pleased to present Sergeant Hill with the Commitment to Excellence Award. All right, Officer Matt Bruff and Officer Ben Cowdrell, please come to the stage. There's an X right there. Annie didn't do it, so if you guys will show her how to do it, please. While on patrol earlier this last year, Officer Ben Cowdrell noticed a vehicle in a parking lot of a closed business. The vehicle moved when the occupants saw him and then stopped on another street. Officer Cowdrell thought this was odd behavior and decided to make contact with the vehicle. He talked with the occupants, a 21-year-old male and a much younger female. The female gave conflicting information about her age and where she lived. At this time, Officer Bruff had also arrived on scene to assist. They both became suspicious of the younger female's statements, believing them to be untruthful. They continued to ask questions of the occupants, researched the facts that they were given, and then interviewed the male and the female separately. Through their investigation, they discovered that the female was only 13 years old, and the adult male in the vehicle confessed that he had been having a sexual relationship with her. The male was arrested on charges of sexual assault on a child, and this contact demonstrated exceptional police work from Officer Cowdrell and Officer Bruff, resulting in the suspect being held accountable for his actions and prevented any other children from being further victimized. For this, I am pleased to present Officers Bruff and Cowdrell with the Commitment to Excellence Award. All right. Will Community Service Officer Tom Brisky please join me on stage? In September, Community Service Officer Tom Brisky was completing a motor vehicle accident investigation at Poudre Valley Hospital when a disturbance suddenly broke out in the emergency room. A female, unrelated to the motor vehicle accident, suddenly started attacking a staff member. Officer Biberos was also in the emergency room at the time. The female kept attacking emergency room staff, and Officer Biberos used his taser to stop her attack. Even after this, she continued to assault those around her. CSO Brisky recognized Officer Biberos needed assistance and radioed for additional officers. He then began aiding Officer Biberos in gaining physical control of the female, placing himself in danger of physical harm in the process. CSO Brisky was able to place the suspect into handcuffs and continued to assist Officer Biberos until more officers arrived. His actions placed him at risk, but were done with the willingness of a dedicated public servant. He helped prevent further injury to both the emergency room staff and Officer Biberos. For his actions, I am pleased to present Community Service Officer Brisky with the Police Chief's Commendation. All right, will Officer Chris Young please come to the stage? In November, Officer Chris Young initiated an investigation into a fraudulent transaction at the Bank of Colorado. The suspects were located soon after in an unreported stolen vehicle and eluded officers. Because we don't pursue, we didn't catch him then. But throughout the next few weeks, Officer Young continued to investigate the incident and identified multiple suspects. He was able to determine that the Weld County Sheriff's Office also had an open case involving the same suspects committing fraudulent acts. Officer Young determined there were numerous Fort Collins victims of fraud, many of whom were not aware they had been defrauded. Officer Young worked diligently to notify and investigate the circumstances surrounding each newly identified victim while coordinating with Weld County. In all, over 20 different victims of fraud were identified in multiple jurisdictions, with an estimated loss of $50,000. Additional crimes, including vehicle thefts and eluding, were also investigated and linked to the same suspects. In late November, Colorado State Patrol contacted both suspects. And even though Officer Young was off duty at the time, he took the time to give them the background on the cases and continued to work with them. Officer Young's tenacity and dedication to the victims in this case are a small example of the exemplary work he does on a daily basis. He took a detective-level case and worked it on patrol while balancing other calls for service and the needs of his shift. Chris is also an FTO who continues to spread his wisdom and knowledge to our new officers. And for his efforts, I am pleased to present Officer Young with the Police Chief's Commendation. Will Corporal Matt Chernak and Officers Jason Epling, Sean Gavin, and Corey Kuiper please come to the stage? In the fall of 2020, Corporal Matt Chernak, Officer Jason Epling, Officer Sean Gavin, and Officer Corey Kuiper were investigating a series of truck thefts occurring in Fort Collins. They determined these truck thefts were likely connected because of key factors, including timelines and the proximity to one another. They also believed the same suspect was likely involved in a burglary and several vehicle trespass cases. Through diligent investigation, Officers Epling and Gavin located recovered stolen property, often manually tracking down stolen items by their serial numbers. As the stolen property belonged to multiple victims, this led to identifying several crimes in other cities. Corporal Chernak and Officer Kuiper believed their suspect was at work when one evening, dispatch aired a call about a stolen truck. Knowing the suspect's method of operation, they were able to locate the vehicle abandoned nearby. Evidence was recovered, which connected even more vehicle trespass cases. The 4 officers did an exceptional job processing multiple scenes and locating and processing evidence for potential DNA and latent prints. The case was forwarded to the Criminal Investigations Division for follow-up, and 2 suspects were identified via DNA hits. In 2021, 22 felony and 5 misdemeanor charges were filed against the suspects. The District Attorney's Office was extremely complimentary of the effort and thoroughness these officers displayed during the investigation. Corporal Chernak and Officers Epling, Gavin, and Kuiper went above and beyond what was expected of them and illustrates exceptional service to the victims of these crimes and the citizens of Fort Collins. For their work, I am pleased to present Corporal Chernak and Officers Epling, Gavin, and Kuiper with a Police Chief's Commendation. All right, will the members of the Fort Collins Police Services Community Service Officer Team please come to the stage? So our Community Service Officer Team is comprised of 7 CSOs and 1 CSO supervisor. From January to November of 2022, our CSOs responded to 6,765 calls for service. They investigated 72% of all the motor vehicle accidents and responded to over 4,000 parking-related calls for service. Their schedules cover all 7 days of the week between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. During this last year, they also experienced significant challenges on their team, with 5 of the team members being absent for several months for a variety of reasons. Several of the CSOs flexed their schedule to cover vacancies that were created by others who were out, and some of the others worked overtime shifts to ensure that there was always coverage, a huge service to patrol officers. This team is fairly small in size, but they greatly impact patrol officers' call load in that they take the majority of the motor vehicle accidents and handle most of the parking-related calls for service. Our CSO team also developed a new program called Books and Badges, a community engagement program encouraging literacy and providing books to those in need. Stay tuned for that, because there'll be a lot more of that to come in 23. It was initiated with the first book drive in November. This team is invaluable to our agency and provides an incredible impact to the patrol division and the community. For their efforts, I am pleased to present them with the Police Chief's Unit Commendation. Okay, will Officer Adam Brunges please join me on stage? Actually, I don't want to be like Chief and continue on and go into somebody else's section, so this is going to be done by, because I've been up here long enough, Acting Assistant Chief Kelly Weaver, who will present the Special Operations Division Awards. And Adam will come up on stage for him. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I might as well throw the nervous card down. Hey, Chief, do you want to fill in for me? So in September of 2020, Officer Adam Brunges was conducting neighborhood patrols near Campus West looking for suspicious activity. During this patrol, Officer Brunges observed a suspect looking into windows at an apartment complex. He called for other officers to respond to contain the area and prevent the suspect from fleeing. Once other officers were in the area, Officer Brunges contacted and apprehended the suspect. Initial investigation resulted in officers determining the suspect had victimized at least 3 females. Due to the nature of the crime, Officer Brunges sent the case on to Criminal Investigations Division detectives for further follow-up, which resulted in an even more comprehensive investigation and identification of more victims. Last August, Officer Brunges was recognized by Boulder Police Department for his efforts. Boulder PD also recently charged this suspect with criminal crimes in their area that spanned over a decade. They identified at least 20 people who were victimized by this suspect. It was Officer Brunges' arrest of the suspect which led to his identification in the Boulder PD cases, ultimately resulting in a 28-year sentence for those crimes. Officer Brunges' proactive, old-fashioned police work, I'll call it old school, directly led to the apprehension and conviction of a dangerous sexual predator. For this, I am pleased to present Officer Brunges with the Police Chief's Commendation. Congrats, man. So I'm going to call quite a few people up to the stand here for the next few awards. And I'm looking at this tiny little X. So the photographer and the X, we're going to try to make this work out. All right, Sergeant Mike Knutson, Corporal Josh Trutler, Detective Justin Birch, and Officer Jared Robertson. In September, dispatch received a call from a third party stating that a female citizen and her mother were being held in their apartment by the citizen's estranged father. The female citizen was not able to call for help, but was able to text the reporting party, who then called 911. As part of the agency's SWAT team, Sergeant Mike Knutson, Corporal Josh Trutler, Detective Justin Birch, and Officer Jared Robertson were part of the first group of officers who arrived on scene. As they did, the female citizen was able to separate herself from her father and open the front door of the apartment. These officers then recognized the opportunity to rescue her mother and pushed into the apartment. The mother was located seated in the living room with injuries, with the suspect standing near her. The suspect was then taken into custody, and both the female citizen and her mother were given medical care. In later interviews, it was determined that the estranged father had broken into the apartment the night before and had been assaulting and threatening both parties with a knife throughout the night. The suspect was charged with multiple crimes, including felony menacing, violation of protection order, second-degree assault, and second-degree assault. When responding, Sergeant Knutson, Corporal Trutler, Detective Birch, and Officer Robertson were calm, controlled, focused, and professional in their conduct. The team's quick actions and movements into the apartment protected and secured the victims from further injury. For their actions, I am pleased to present them with the Police Chief's Commendations. Good job, guys. All right, so this will be the last one. It's going to be a big one. Photographer, all right. Crisis Negotiator Team, Lieutenant Jackie Pearson, Sergeants Kim Cochran, Sergeant Annie Hill, Sergeant David Lindsay, Corporals Shane Kundle, Carly Garner, Matt Hahn, Detective Julia Chenoweth, Officers Chris Bland, Kate Garcia, Sarah Click, Jim Leonards, and Dexter Rowe. As part of our SWAT team, the Crisis Negotiation Team communicates with people who are threatening violence to themselves or others, including barricaded subjects and criminals attempting to escape after a robbery or hostage-taking situation. Over the past year or so, Lieutenant Jackie Pearson and Sergeant Kim Cochran have rebuilt the team with new members and new equipment, and the CNT members have stepped up to the challenge and provided outstanding support to SWAT on numerous high-risk incidents. In one example, a suicidal individual who lived near a local high school was talked into surrendering multiple times by Sergeant Andy Hill and other members of the CNT team. In another instance, CNT member and mental health response team officers Chris Bland assisted on a call-out involving a barricaded female suspect in the vehicle. He used his crisis negotiation and mental health skills to talk the suspect into surrendering after several rounds of less lethal force were used against her. Lieutenant Mark Martinez, who was supervising the scene, said that Officer Bland was very skillful in helping resolve the situation safely. In December, the crisis negotiations team helped patrol and SWAT resolve a hostage situation where the suspect was holding 2 hostages at gunpoint, including a child. The situation was tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving on an open phone line to 911. The work they did in this case resulted in hostages being safely released and the suspect being arrested on multiple charges. For their actions, I am pleased to present them with the Police Chief's Unit Commendation.
All right.
Are you nervous? Okay. I would now like to introduce Acting Assistant Chief Jeremy Yantz, who will be presenting the Criminal Investigations Division Awards. Everyone have a great evening.
All right. Would Corporal Jason Shutters please come up on stage with me? Corporal Jason Shutters is a digital forensics examiner and crime scene investigator detective in our Forensic Services Unit. At the end of 2021, due to a retirement, Corporal Shutters was named interim supervisor for the unit. During this time, Corporal Shutters managed the team while pushing forward process and technological advancements. When the new sergeant was chosen, Corporal Shutters worked closely with and advised the new sergeant while he continued with his digital forensics and CSI duties. Throughout 2022, Corporal Shutters worked on several large projects. This included writing several proposals for computer equipment and software to improve the capabilities of the Forensic Services Unit, scheduling training for the digital forensics team, and being called out many times to off-duty calls while serving as a crime scene investigator. Corporal Shutters also provided drone training to new agency pilots. He is an indispensable member of the Forensic Services team. His vast experience in many disciplines, calm and thoughtful demeanor, flexibility, and willingness to help make him a huge asset to the Forensic Services Unit, the agency, and the citizens of Fort Collins. For this, I am pleased to present Corporal Shutters with the Commitment to Excellence. Would criminalist Elena Graff please join me on stage? Criminalist fingerprint examiner Elena Graff was hired by our agency in February of 2022 and came to us with 14 years of experience at the FBI. When she was hired, there were 3 full-time and 2 part-time fingerprint examiners at the Northern Colorado Regional Forensic Laboratory. Throughout 2022, 4 of these employees left, leaving Elena and 1 other examiner to handle all the cases the different agencies in Northern Colorado submit. When she finished her training, there was a backlog of approximately 216 cases, with a turnaround time of 180 days. She began working with her tenacious focus, and by the end of the year, the backlog of cases was reduced to less than 150 with a turnaround time of 100 days. The lab sets a minimum goal of 15 cases for each employee the latent print examiners, and Elena averages 20 cases per month as well as her other job duties. She also taught forensics detectives techniques she learned during her time at the FBI and helped the Forensic Services Unit give tours and demonstrations to citizen groups. In addition, she was appointed to the International Association of Identification Conference Board as the historian. She has become an indispensable member of the Forensic Services Unit team and is a huge asset to the agency, organizations that the lab serves, and to the citizens of Fort Collins. For this, I am pleased to present criminalist Elena Graff with the Commitment to Excellence. Will Detective Alan Benbow please join me on stage? In April, Detective Alan Benbow was assigned a difficult embezzlement case that involved an employee at the Poudre River Public Library District. The employee was suspected of using her department credit card for personal purchases. Funding for the library district consists of taxpayer funds, donations, and grants, and is essentially public money. As the library audited the damage from the thefts, it became apparent that the employee had been stealing from these funds from 2016 until 2020. Detective Benbow poured through volumes of financial records to itemize out thousands of purchases that were suspected to be personal purchases, wrote several search warrants to discover online purchases, and interviewed numerous library employees. The case had to be handled discreetly and sensitively, as the employee was part of the management team and active in the community. After 14 months of investigation, the suspect was formally charged with multiple felony offenses, including theft, unauthorized use of financial transaction device, cybercrime, and second-degree forgery. For his efforts and tenacity, I am pleased to present Detective Benbow with the Police Chief's Commendation. Would Detectives Chris Bozek, Tim Moeller, Analyst Drew Kimball, Deputy DA Ashley Barber, please join me on stage. We're waiting just a second for the video to be redirected here for this award. Also, I think several of these people are not here this evening. They were planning on being here, but there's actually an active investigation going on right at the moment that they got called away on. Are they good? In 2020, Detective Chris Bozek began an investigation into numerous subjects involved in the distribution of cocaine in the northern Colorado area. In 2022, Detective Tim Moeller, Analyst Drew Kimball, and Deputy District Attorney Ashley Barber began assisting with this investigation, and it evolved into what became known as Operation Buy-In. With the assistance of other task force members, many of them undercover, controlled purchases of cocaine were completed in addition to countless other electronic and surveillance operations. In September, a state wiretap was initiated, and a total of 3 telephone lines and a social media account were intercepted. As part of this investigation, Detectives Bozek and Moeller, along with Analyst Kimball, were responsible for writing a significant number of court orders, organizing tactical surveillance operations, and working with the District Attorney's Office to prepare testimony and use the 8th Judicial District Grand Jury to assist with prosecuting this criminal organization. Seizure results from this investigation included 3.4 pounds of cocaine, 17 firearms, 340 dosage units of LSD, 3.3 grams of fentanyl, and $44,000. This investigation has significantly impacted the distribution of cocaine in the northern Colorado area. For this, I am pleased to present them with the Police Chief's Commendation. Several of these people are also not here this evening for the same reason, but if Sergeants Chris Jacobson, Josiah Thiemann, Detective Rob Knabb, Dan Bonce, Annalise Taylor Smith could join me on stage, please. In January of 2021, Detective Rob Knabb began an investigation into a drug trafficking organization operating in the northern Colorado area. As the case known as Operation Pieces of Eight progressed, Sergeant Jacobson, Sergeant Thiemann, Detective Bonce, and Annalise Smith, along with other task force detectives, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the 8th Judicial District Attorney's Office, and the State of Colorado Attorney General's Office assisted Detective Knabb with this large-scale investigation. In January of 2022, a wiretap was initiated, which involved the court-authorized intercept of 6 telephone lines and various other social media accounts. Several detectives were also responsible for driving to and from Denver on a daily basis to manage the intercepts and organize surveillance operations. Those investigating were also responsible for preparing grand jury testimony and working with the Attorney General's Office and the DEA to maximize the prosecution of this criminal organization. In April, search warrants were served, and the case resulted in 15 members of the organization being indicted, and over 36 ounces of cocaine, 3,900 fentanyl pills, 28 ounces of heroin, 20 pounds of marijuana, and 3 firearms being seized. This investigation resulted in the dismantling of a transnational criminal drug organization that has been suspected of operating in northern Colorado for numerous years. For their efforts, I am pleased to present them with the police chief's commendation. All right, if I could have the Forensic Services Unit join me on stage, Sergeant Kyle Benza, Corporal Jason Shutters, Detective Drew Jerkowski, Detective Pete DeCracker, Detective R.J. Westland, Criminalist Gretchen Gross, Criminalist Elena Graff, Criminalist Keith Maynard, join me on stage. The Fort Collins Police Services Forensic Services Unit has many responsibilities, including high-level crime scene processing, forensic examination of digital evidence, and scientific evidence processing. This year, the Forensic Service Unit's detectives and criminalists experienced a record number of critical incident response team activations where they played a major role in crime scene and evidence processing. On average, since 2005, there have been 2.4 CERT activations annually average. This last year, there were 10. Due to the resources, expertise, and availability of our Forensic Services Unit, they were the primary crime scene investigation team on the majority of these CERT cases and took a leadership role in leading and mentoring crime scene investigators from partner agencies. Forensic Services Unit managed these CERT scenes while experiencing significant turnover in the unit and onboarding of new employees. Last year, the digital forensics investigators on the team received 169 submissions for 218 electronic devices and completed 1,900 hours of forensic analysis. As one of the few teams in the state with the knowledge and equipment, they completed digital data acquisition and analysis on numerous vehicle data systems for other agencies. Our FSU crime scene investigators went on 53 call-outs and assisted detectives on an additional 22 crime scenes. Detective Jakowski continued to assist agency by taking the lead and assisting on numerous serious motor vehicle accident call-outs and investigations. 2022 has been an exceptionally busy year for the team, and they have continued leading and performing at an exceptional level. For this, I am pleased to present the Forensic Services Unit with the Police Chief's Unit Commendation. I would now like to ask Director Justin Aller to come up to the podium to present the Information Services Division Awards, unless you'd like me to start reading them.
All right, I just want to take a quick moment to thank everyone here for your support and attendance. It's just really inspirational to have this level of support and turnout, so thank you. Will Record Supervisor Anita Daniel please join me on stage? Background investigator Dave Grant is also included in this award, but is unable to join us this evening. Record Supervisor Anita Daniel has served as the hiring manager for our records unit since 2016. This was a shared task by other supervisors at one point, but it quickly became apparent that it was well suited for Anita. Since that time, she coordinated with our personnel and training unit on numerous occasions to post jobs, review applications, organize the testing, interviews, and backgrounds, as well as prepare conditional and final job offers. As a record supervisor, Anita has other regular duties and has always been able to meet deadlines and stay within hiring timelines. Records has had vacancies for many years, but this year we will be fully staffed. This is largely due to Anita and background investigator David Grant's partnership. Dave handles all the professional staff hiring processes for the agency. Often he's managing multiple processes at once. He does an excellent job managing each process, communicating with each manager, and staying connected with all the applicants. Even with the large workload, he responds to questions or issues from hiring managers and applicants quickly and professionally. Anita and Dave represent the agency well through their partnership. For this, I'm pleased to present Anita and Dave with the Commitment to Excellence Award. All right, well, Police and Transportation Technology Manager Jeff Willard, please join me on stage. Police and Transportation Technology Manager Jeff Willard has been instrumental in supporting police services and our technology needs. In 2022, Jeff created over 15 online forums, which includes the form used to submit nominations for this very award ceremony, as well as the forms used for training requests and many other units' data collection needs. These forms have been used over 15,000 times, increasing the push to digitize our documentation process. Jeff will be presenting at the Co-Responders Conference in 2023 about the data collection our mental health response team has done using these forms. Throughout November, Jeff has also led his IT team to complete nearly 1,300 help desk requests while being short a staff member for most of the year. He's led his employees through many projects, as well as including making it much easier for officers to use different printers for evidence labels around the building instead of having to just utilize one. In partnership with the Personnel Training Unit, he has also helped transition their software to the cloud. Jeff currently has multiple projects underway, which includes e-citation readers, low-touch scanner deployments and records, and the Vehicle Router project to help improve critical connectivity for our first responders. For his hard work and great attitude, I'm pleased to present Jeff with the Commitment to Excellence Award. All right, to accept this award on behalf of the many FC 911 employees who assisted in this effort, will Dispatch Supervisor Emma McDowell please join me on stage? In January 2022, the Colorado State University Police Department Dispatch Center was short-staffed and they could not operate their dispatch effectively overnight. They requested that our dispatch center run their operations from 1900 to 0700 several days in a row. The CSU PD Center handles several of the same call types as our dispatchers, but there are also other tasks and procedures that we don't handle on a daily basis. To provide the best service to both Fort Collins Police Services and CSU, CSU PD officers began operating on our primary channel. Due to this, the dispatchers had to navigate the two different agencies being on the same channel, but they all handled these competing demands seamlessly and never skipped a beat. Since then, our dispatch center has assisted CSU PD on 9 additional nights, as well as for a continuous stretch of time from October 23rd to December 18th. It is paramount to our dispatchers that they provide help and services to our citizens and partner responders when they need it. This includes our partnering dispatch centers. Thank you to CSU and to members of FC 911 team for their commitment to help a partner dispatch center out during their times of need. For this, I'm pleased to present them with the Police Chiefs Unit Commendation. All right, I would now like to ask Chief Svoboda to return to the podium. Thank you.
Okay, now for our agency medals. Will Officer Mark Cutter please come forward for the Medal of Merit. In October, officers were dispatched to the call of a female who was possibly overdosing in a tent. The description and location given were very vague due to the emotional state of the informant and lack of address or identifying features of where the tent was located. Officer Cutter, diverted from what he was doing, quickly located the tent and found the unconscious female inside. He took the female out of the tent, directed officers and medical personnel to the location, and began life-saving efforts. Unfortunately, the female passed away, but Officer Cutter's efforts on this call were of the highest caliber and are deserving of recognition. And for his life-saving efforts, I am pleased to present Officer Mark Cutter with the Medal of Merit. Hey, Mark, go that way. First one's always the hardest. We changed it up on Mark. Officer Will Barberos, please come to the stage. In May, officers were dispatched to a medical emergency where it was reported that a female had possibly overdosed. Officer Barberos was the first to arrive on scene and discovered that the female was in a bathtub and a roommate was doing CPR. Officer Barberos removed the female from the bathtub and took her out to the living room where he continued administering CPR. Poudre Fire Authority and EMS arrived on scene and relieved Officer Barberos of the life-saving efforts. As he suspected that fentanyl might be the reason for the overdose, he recommended that EMS administer Narcan as well. During their combined efforts, the female regained a pulse and was transported to PVH for further treatment. Unfortunately, they weren't able to stabilize the female at the hospital and she passed away. If it wasn't for Officer Barberos' quick thinking and life-saving efforts while on scene, it's likely the signs of life wouldn't have been reestablished at all. And it is for his efforts that I'm pleased to present Officer Barberos with the Medal of Merit. All right, will Dispatcher Meg Barberos and Sadie Ottenberger please join me on stage? On October 27, 2022, Sadie and her mother-in-law were northwest of Wellington driving home from a hiking when her mother-in-law began having chest pain, jaw pain, and arm pain. Sadie pulled the car over and called 911. Dispatcher Meg Barberos answered her call and recognized the symptoms of those of a heart attack. Megan dispatched medical help to their location right away, but unfortunately they were 18 minutes away from medical assistance. Megan instructed Sadie to get her mother-in-law out of the car and to have her sit on the ground. As they were going through the medical questions, Sadie's mother-in-law became unresponsive and stopped breathing. Megan had Sadie start chest compressions quickly and walked her through this unimaginable situation with compassion and support. Sadie continued performing CPR for 8 minutes until help arrived. Medical crews took over and a helicopter was called to the scene. At the time of transport, Sadie's mother-in-law was awake and speaking to medical crews. Sadie's calm demeanor, ability to act quickly, and willingness to conduct CPR saved her mother-in-law's life. Without direction from Meg and her commitment to supporting Sadie through this process, the results would have been much different. For her life-saving actions, I'm pleased to present Sadie with a Distinguished Service Commendation and for her immense assistance to Sadie, I'm pleased to present Dispatcher Megan Barberos with a Medal of Merit. Will Sergeant David Lindsay and Officer Corey Donovan please come forward? In October, officers were dispatched to the call of a suicidal individual. Information in the case was from a third-party information, and the location of the subject was not exact. Officers looked for 20 minutes before Sergeant David Lindsay located the subject in his car, parked in a parking lot. Sergeant Lindsay noticed the subject had large, deep cuts to both wrists and was unresponsive. Officer Corey Donovan heard Sergeant Lindsay call out for emergent assistance and responded. As Officer Donovan arrived, Sergeant Lindsay forced entry into the subject's car and pulled him from it. They both applied tourniquets to the subject's arms to stop the bleeding. When EMS arrived, they took him to the hospital where he was treated and was in stable condition. The actions taken by Sergeant Lindsay and Officer Donovan were quick, decisive, and saved this subject's life. For their life-saving actions, I'm pleased to present Sergeant Lindsay and Officer Donovan with Medals of Merit. Will Officer Chris Young please come forward? In August, Officer Chris Young responded to a report of a disturbance and stabbing in Northwest Fort Collins. When he arrived, Officer Young immediately began rendering aid to a juvenile victim who had a severe laceration to his wrist and was bleeding uncontrollably. Officer Young applied a tourniquet and quick clot to the laceration, effectively controlling the bleeding. The juvenile was taken to EMS to the hospital as a full trauma patient. He received additional medical treatment and survived his injury. In his response to the call, Officer Young acted in a calm and controlled and a professional manner. He gathered pertinent details regarding a dynamic, evolving situation and adequately coordinated with responding officers to stabilize the incident. He did all of this while acting without delay to render medical aid to a victim who was at risk of serious bodily injury or death, ultimately allowing him to survive his injuries. And for his actions, I am pleased to present Officer Young with the Medal of Merit. Will Officer Scott Brittingham and Kevin Park please come forward? In July 2022, officers were dispatched to a report of a missing infant. The infant had been missing for a day after being taken by the babysitter. The babysitter was also wanted for questioning in an unrelated attempted murder case. Officer Scott Brittingham diligently monitored available surveillance cameras in the Old Town area and located the suspect with the infant at the Downtown Transit Center. Officer Brittingham continued monitoring cameras and coordinated the response of incoming officers. Officer Kevin Park quickly arrived in the area and contacted the suspect and the infant. The infant was okay, but was taken to the hospital for evaluation. The suspect was arrested, and upon investigation, a loaded handgun was recovered in the stroller where the infant had been seated. For their actions, I'm pleased to present Officer Brittingham and Officer Park with Medals of Merit. Will Officer McGregor please come forward? In November, Officer Mike McGregor had just finished his workday when he heard a call for service referencing a suspicious male on the overpass on Vine and I-25. When Officer McGregor arrived, he quickly recognized that the male was in crisis and threatening to jump into I-25 traffic. The subject rushed up to the protective fencing on the north side of the overpass, and Officer McGregor quickly responded by physically restraining him, preventing him from jumping into the southbound lanes. At this point, the subject's torso was over the top of the protective fencing, but Officer McGregor was able to wrap his arms around the subject's legs and squeeze them and hold on to prevent him from getting the rest of his body over the fencing. The subject aggressively resisted Officer McGregor until assistance arrived. Once they did, they were able to physically remove the subject from the fencing and restrain him, and getting him the support he needed. For his life-saving efforts, while putting himself in physical danger, I'm pleased to present Officer McGregor with the Distinguished Service Medal. Will Officer Ben Cowdrill, Stephen Frew, and Malcolm Jones please come forward? In August, Officer Cowdrill, Frew, and Malcolm Jones responded to a call of a suicide attempt near North Azatlan Center. The officers arrived on scene and could hear screaming coming from the river nearby. Officers ran in that direction and could see a young male in the middle of the river with a rope around his neck. The male had jumped from the bridge about 20 feet above and had the rope still tied around his neck. Officers cut the rope away from the bridge and around his neck, providing him an airway. The male sustained non-life-threatening injuries and was transported to the hospital. These officers' quick response and actions saved this young man's life and offered him another chance. For these officers' actions, I am pleased to present them with Distinguished Service Medals. Will Officers Netzel, Rader, Robinson, Staggers, and Tybee please come forward? In September, Officer Staggers was in his patrol car near an intersection of Mountain and College when he heard a string of gunshots just south of his location. He saw multiple people running from the area and responded. There he found the victim of several gunshot wounds. Officer Staggers began rendering aid and was joined by Tybee, Netzel, and Max Rader. Officers Netzel, Rader began actively looking for the suspect. Officer Staggers was able to describe the whereabouts of the person, what he was wearing. Officer Justin Robinson was also nearby in his patrol vehicle and arrived with his combat medical kit. Officers Staggers, Tybee, and Robinson applied tourniquets and QuikClot to the victim's wounds and provided medical aid until EMT arrived. This incident occurred right around when the bars typically closed, and the night was very busy and for all of our downtown officers. There were multiple citizens in the area that were where the shooting occurred, many of whom were in various states of intoxication. Officers were not only tasked with rendering aid and looking for an armed suspect, but also protecting a half-block crime scene and covered both northbound lanes of a busy roadway. These officers are recognized for displaying courage and commitment in the face of potential danger and running towards the sound of gunfire in an effort to protect the community and citizens during this dynamic and evolving incident. It is for these reasons I am pleased to present Officer Netzel, Rader, Robinson, Staggers, and Tybee with the Distinguished Service Medals. The next officer is unable to attend tonight, but I will be accepting it on Officer Klitnovich's behalf. In May, a call was aired from dispatch where a citizen experienced a seizure and fell into the Poudre River near Legacy Park. Officer Klitnovich was on scene almost immediately and located the man who was unresponsive in the river. The man's elderly father was in the river as well, holding on to him to prevent him from floating downstream. Officer Klitnovich recognized that the father was unable to hold on much longer, so he jumped into the river to secure the man and keep his face out of the water. He continued holding on until other emergency resources arrived. He then clearly and quickly communicated what he needed to get the man out of the water, as well as medical personnel who then rushed him to the hospital. The man spent 2 nights in the hospital until he was able to walk out on his own. Aside from being sore, he was expected to make a full recovery. And if it wasn't for, without Officer Klitnovich's decisive and quick actions, placing himself at risk, the male would have likely been pulled downstream and drowned. And it's for his courageous actions that I will be presenting Mark with the Distinguished Service Medal at the police station. Congratulations, Mark. Are we doing a technology check now too? Okay. Next, I would like to ask Officer Phil Selgren to come forward. Is he here? There he comes. Thank you. In September, officers responded to a report of a disturbance at a Fort Collins apartment. Officers learned that the suspect had been at the location earlier in the day but left prior to officers' arrival. They also knew the suspect had an outstanding felony warrant. As officers arrived, they observed the suspect on the balcony of the apartment. He fled from officers into the apartment. While the suspect was trying to escape into the apartment, Officer Kobe Northern and Officer Phil Selgren pursued the suspect and made entry into the apartment, encountering several people inside. Once inside the apartment, a male suspect emerged quickly from a bedroom with a shotgun aimed directly at Officer Selgren, placing his and Officer Northern's life in serious danger or death. Officer Selgren quickly identified this danger and fired rounds in defense of his life and that of Officer Northern. Officer Selgren held his position, remaining alert and vigilant until he could be relieved by other responding officers, because there were still occupants in the apartment. Officer Northern immediately got the male suspect outside and began rendering aid until emergency medical services arrived and saved his life. For his life-saving efforts, I'm pleased to accept the Medal of Merit on behalf of Kobe Northern, and for his courageous actions, which likely saved the life of himself and his fellow officer, I'm pleased to present Officer Philip Selgren with the Medal of Valor. Would Scott Crumbaker please come to the stage? On September 29th, Sergeant Scott Crumbaker of our Criminal Impact Unit was working on a stalking case with Corporal Josh Goldschmidt. While conducting covert surveillance tactics, they were confronted by an associate of the suspect in the case. The suspect approached Sergeant Crumbaker in a conversational manner and without provocation struck him, knocking him unconscious. As a result, Sergeant Crumbaker was hospitalized for several weeks with a serious head injury. Since then, he has made significant progress in recovering from his injury and recently started working back at our agency again. During his initial recovery, Sergeant Crumbaker was deeply missed by the agency personnel, and the absence of his infectious and positive attitude was felt by all of us. Seeing him back in the building has been welcome and comforting, and I know speaking for many, really all, when I say we are incredibly grateful that Sergeant Crumbaker is doing amazingly well and he's back at the station. And for a recognition of this, I am pleased to present Sergeant Scott Crumbaker with the Purple Heart. Okay, so now we are to the Of the Year awards. These are the final segment of awards. The first one is for a Volunteer of the Year. So for those who don't know, we try to make these a surprise as best we can. So we call family if we can get a hold of them. We try to get people here on other reasons to come so they don't know. It's not always perfect, but for anybody getting an award, take a look around. You might recognize some people out in the audience, but we try our best because this is a special award, and it's ones that not for one specific act, as you've just heard us mention, just so many amazing feats by people and the dangerous work that policing is, and the way in which our dispatcher handle things. I mean, you could just go on and on. I don't need to recap, but these are for people who just day in and day out just do an amazing job. And this first one is for a Volunteer of the Year. Now, I read this a little weird because I'm trying to not give it away until the very end, so bear with me. But what I love about this first award, the Volunteer of the Year, is many times we talk and we're hiring new people. We talk to people, why do you want to be a police officer? And many times we'll hear, well, because I want to help people. And that's part of the reason I think many of us got into our careers. But then the second question is, okay, so what are you doing right now to help people is always a good one, because if they don't have a good answer, sometimes it's like, well, you want to help people when you're paid as a police officer, but if you truly like helping people, what are you doing on your own time? And this person has that answer knocked out of the park, because this person started volunteering for Fort Collins Police Services in 2019. They were volunteering in our Explorer unit, helping out there, and when they aged out, they quickly found other opportunities to volunteer. Last year, this person volunteered just shy of 1,000 hours. So that's volunteer work out in our community that would have taken somebody else, and so they do an amazing job. This individual is a great team member and one who is always looking to learn and do new things, always looking to improve. So I'm very happy to award the Volunteer of the Year to a former Explorer, a former Reserve Community Service Officer, and a current cadet in Fort Collins Police Services Academy number 3, Tatiana Abdunnar. Tatiana, come on. You're going to have to double time it here, Tatiana. There you go. All right. When they're in the cadets, you can still do that, you know. There you go. Look at that. And everyone in these last couple have to say a few words. So come on up, Tatiana.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you. This goes out to every single person who's supported me since day one. You know, my life was changed by police officers in this agency in 2018, and it's an amazing agency, guys. Thank you to all the Explorer fellow cadets, advisors who spent so much time and energy investing into us. Thank you to the Reserve CSO team for believing in me, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to continue to serve my community as a police officer in this cadet program. It's amazing, and every single person deserves this award, so thank you.
This next award goes out to the Professional Staff Member of the Year. This person's nomination was in major part just due to the demand that is placed on them, the workload that comes at them daily. Not to mention the nature of the work. It's very difficult in many ways. This person is the consummate professional, always representing Fort Collins Police Services very well. They are looked at by their peers. I know they're looked at by administration regularly, the community because of the nature of their work, and actually the entire region. I know this person was recently training people from the region on how to do the job because she does it so well. You will see this person, this person is an expert in their field. People from all around come to find out how she does her job. The Professional Staff of the Year makes us better every single way in big and small ways. And it's for these reasons and many more that I'm awarding the Professional Staff of the Year to Police Services Technician Sarah Alba.
I'm incredibly humbled by this and surprised, and I'm grateful to work for an agency with sworn and civilian staff who are constantly showing their empathy and compassion. And yeah, I'm just incredibly lucky, and this is very surprising and humbling, and I really appreciate it.
You see, Sarah works in our records department, but does with the body camera, and with whether it's new legislation or just the demand on people wanting to see police body camera, Sarah is just inundated. And she's got a team down there that assists in things, but Sarah's been doing this for years and is an expert. And any trauma that any officer sees that's captured on their body camera, Sarah also sees and works through that. And again, she just does an amazing job, and it's a big reason why we selected her this year. The nomination came in. This next one is for a Rookie of the Year. This officer began his career with Fort Collins Police Services this past year and has demonstrated leadership skills early on in the academy and was named as one of the academy team leaders. The officer also earned multiple awards at Fort Collins Police Academy. Upon complete from the letter that I received for this person, upon completion of the FTO program, this officer has demonstrated they are a hardworking officer, eager to learn, and consistently taking on new challenges. They frequently offer to help out when shifts are short, and they stay late when is needed. This officer is flexible and goes where they are needed without hesitation or complaint. This officer offers great customer service and the community offers great customer service to the community we serve and completes each case to the fullest extent. This officer is thorough and considers all perspectives and evidence. They are confident in handling calls, but also know when to ask for help. This officer brings fresh and energetic passion to policing on their team. Early on in their career, they have demonstrated a solid understanding of policing and the judicial system, which can be accredited to the effort they have put into their training. And for these reasons, I am awarding the Rookie of the Year to Officer Nate Simonier.
Wow, thank you all so much. Wow, I can't see anyone. I had no idea this was coming. I can see why people really pushed me to come here tonight and to wear my uniform, because I was on light duty. But thank you all so much, and thank you for all my supervisors and all the people that I've learned so much from. All of y'all have definitely made me to strive to be the best that I can. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to my wife, Sydney, for always being there for me.
Okay, a couple more left. This one is, we are on to the Officer of the Year. Reading from various nominations, this officer is the epitome of a servant. They serve this community and their fellow teammates in so many ways. This officer has trained multiple people this past year. They went to another unit to assist during a very busy time, and they are working regularly with the youth in our community. The youth in our community could not have a better role model. In the multiple nominations this officer received, the most common words were knowledge, quality, mentor, and empathy. One nomination ended with this. This officer is an incredible human being who happens to be a police officer. He exudes our values each and every moment, and I cannot think of an officer more deserving of this award. It is for these reasons that I am awarding the Officer of the Year to R.J. Tuttle.
Wow, thank you all. When I started with this agency as an explorer 10 years ago now, I looked out at so many of you as role models. And I just want to say that I'm so proud to be a part of this amazing organization and to wear the same patch and badge alongside all of you that have given me so much. And I'm just happy that I now have the opportunity to give back to all of you as a part of this great team and to give back to our community. So this is a team effort, and I'm just very happy to be here with all of you because you're what makes it tick. Thank you.
The next award is for a Detective of the Year. The Detective of the Year is someone who is respected throughout the region. They have vast experience and continue to deliver high-quality service every single day. In fact, this detective has taken on an additional endeavor that will no doubt make our community and region safer in the coming years. Over the year, this detective has taken time to teach at Fort Collins Police Academy, as well as train officers and detectives from several local agencies. In addition, this detective has taken on additional responsibility when the supervisor is not present. In the nomination, the words like mentor, coach, and leader were used multiple times. This detective has taken their vast experience to help educate the community, their coworkers, and policing as a whole. And it is for these reasons that I'm awarding the Detective of the Year to Corporal Scott Gammon.
You're right, you can't see anyone out here. No, this was a surprise, and I really appreciate it. I've been here for 30 years now, so I'm kind of the old guy that everyone makes fun of probably. With that being said, too, I've spent most of my time out of the main police building, out at the Drug Task Force. So for a lot of the young cops in here, I don't know them very well. They probably don't know me either. If I'm the one walking in the building, I do actually work for the police department. But it's neat to see after 30 years the growth of this organization. I've been proud to work for it from day one. I started as an explorer as well, so I have 30 plus years here, and it's just a great organization, great community to be in, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
And I happened to sit in one of Scott's recent presentations. He's become an expert, unfortunately, because of the climate of today, but on fentanyl, and is just doing a lot to educate people because we all know the deadly effects of fentanyl, and thanks for Scott, all the things that you're doing with that. The second to last one is for Professional Staff Supervisor of the Year. This person is exactly what you want in a teammate. They have that collaborative spirit and are always looking at the big picture. I know personally that this individual has had many items placed on their workload and has asked for a quick turnaround. That comment was from me. There are many times we need something right away, and this person always is just, okay, I'll get on it. And they just perform amazingly, and again, we know things are coming at them last minute, and they just take it on, and we just really appreciate it. They complete their work, and they do it with a smile. At least is when they're smiling in front of me. I'm not sure exactly what they say when they go back to their area. But the person has led and participated in teams and working groups that are very time-consuming and very tricky issues to solve. Yet again, they are a leader who rolls up their sleeves and just gets to work. From forums to dashboards, this person can do it all. And again, the quality is what sets them apart. And it's for that reason I'm awarding the Professional Staff Supervisor of the Year to Jeff Willard.
I'm a little nervous, Chief. You want to do it for me? So, You know, it's an honor. I've been here for almost 7 years, and to be here, with Fort Collins Police Services and everything that, this agency has gone through during that time, it's been amazing to watch. But I will say, this isn't just about me. This is about my team as well. Mitchell, Billie Jean, Jeremy, I wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for you either. You guys are amazing, and Gal are absolutely amazing. So I thank you for that, and yeah, thanks everybody.
And the final award of the night is for the Supervisor of the Year. In this write-up, there was just a lot to be said, but as I knocked it down, you would think it goes hand in hand with supervisor, but just the leadership they provide in a quiet, steady way. The care that they provide, not only for their current team, but the organization as a whole, and then also for the future. And what I mean by that is they really help us a lot with interviewing people who want to come and work here. They work with the FTO team. They've in the past have worked with firearms. They do just so much. We did an interview of this person for a promotion a few years back, and when they left the room, we all looked at each other and said, okay, this person will be running the show one day. And it just left us so confident, and he's a frontline supervisor that does great work day in and day out in a challenging downtown area. And for those reasons that I mentioned before, I want to ask Austin Veal to come forward for the Supervisor of the Year.
Wow. Well, I am humbled and honored to be up here. But I would say that the only reason I'm up here is because of the amazing men and women that I have the privilege to work with. They make my job very easy because I know that they come to work every day to do the right things for the right reason. They make my job very hard because they do so much work that it's hard to keep up with them. Like I say, I'm humbled, I'm honored, and also wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for my wife, Melissa, my daughters, Isabel and Ava. They're the reason why I do what I do. So, thank you.
All right, we are at 8:03 and we started a little late, so we are less than the 2-hour mark, but I just want to take a moment to just thank a few more people. FCTV, Carson, your crew, every year you're out here and you do amazing work, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate you doing this. You're able to stream this online so people who couldn't make it tonight could watch it, and you've just always been a great partner for us, and we really appreciate the work you do. You're such professionals. John, our photographer, right here, thank you for all you're doing. Love the way you ordered the cops around a lot up here and move over, so that was great. Again, our awards board, Timberline Church, thanks for letting us be here. And then ultimately, the family of those who are here just to support somebody else. And, you know, in life, it's not always about what you say, it's just showing up when important events are happening. And so I just love looking out and seeing that kids are here, and I know that we surprised a few people with some family that showed up, and just being present when somebody's having a good day or a bad day is really what it's all about. And so just being here means a lot to so many people and to this organization. And so I want to say thank you to them. And just in closing, I would probably just say, really do appreciate, probably reiterating what I said at the beginning, it takes all of us, and we're all in this together, making us. Our goal at Fort Collins, it's a stretch goal, but we have a goal to be the safest community in the country. And I know that that's a stretch goal and it's out there, but I like to say if that's not your goal, what are you in this business for? If you don't want to prevent every crime that's occurring out there, why are you in this business? Might not be possible, it might take a long time to get there, but that's our goal. And so I'm so proud of the work that's being done here. And I'd just finally like to say, could our cadets all please stand for a second in the back? You know, in this day and age, it's difficult. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. We launched our academy with police officers and our community service officers that you heard about, and we're all about serving our community and how we get there. And, you know, it's never been easy to be a police officer, and it's challenging now, sure. But the fact that we have people like the men and women in the back who are still stepping up and doing this, and then you hear from someone like Scott Gammon, after 30 years, they're still doing it, they're still knocking it out of the park. We're in great hands, and if we don't have big goals in this community, shame on us, because we can pretty much set our mind to whatever we want to accomplish. I promise you, the men and women of the Fort Collins Police Services are stand ready to do some of the really hard lifting, but in partnership with our community, our council, our city management, all of our work groups across the city, I believe firmly we can get to that. And I really appreciate, again, people stepping up to take on this difficult profession. But man, many of us are in our line of work because it is tough. If you wanted an easy job, there's enough of them out there to find. But being in policing, being in city management, being in the city government, when you're not always sure what the citizens want from you, it changes from day to day, and depending on who you ask, it makes it tough. But that's why I think many of us love it. And so I can tell you that the team inside Fort Collins Police Services, supported by their family and supported by the city, along in partnership with our community, we can accomplish anything. And I really want to say I appreciate everyone for being here. You know, it's amazing to be the police chief here. I'm sure Tim Durant will say the same thing at Loveland. It's all about the men and women who you hire out there actually doing the work. You know, I get to stand up here and read names and congratulate people, but to the people who are standing in the back because at any minute their radio is going to go off or they have to run, or to the detectives who couldn't be here today because they're taking dangerous people off the street as we speak. I mean, that's where the work is at, and it's just such an honor to be in the company of all of you because you do amazing work day in and day out. And so to all the recipients, congratulations. To your family, congratulations, and we'll see you again next year. One more round of applause for all those who are getting awards. And that's it. Good night. Thanks, everybody.